Good afternoon, Credit Call Planners. My name is Mr. Simbi, and welcome to the Paper 2 revision. I'm glad for those who joined us yesterday as we're preparing for Paper 1. And today we're going to prepare for Paper 2. Remember, we're writing Paper 2 on Monday, so you need to know certain aspects so that you can prepare accordingly for your Paper 2. Here are my objectives in today's lesson. I'll look at the structure of Paper 2. I'll also do the bank reconciliation. I'll also do our debtors reconciliation. Inventory valuation will also be dealt with today. I'll also do cost accounting. Budgeting will also be touched in today's class. I'll also look at VAT when time permits, and you also know that your fixed assets will form part of Paper 2. So you have to prepare your fixed assets. You have to know how to calculate depreciation. You have to know how to calculate depreciation when you are given more than one asset. So we will look at that when time permits. Here's the structure for your Paper 2. You will have your cost accounting, which normally is between 55 marks, plus or minus 55 marks. But with your cost accounting, it is very possible that the examiner can merge your cost accounting with inventory valuation. I've seen exam papers like that, whereby they bring in your inventory valuation, such as your first in, first out, your weighted average, or specific identification into cost accounting. That is a possibility. And your budgeting will also have marks plus or minus 40. Your reconciliations plus minus 40 as well, if it does come. And then you also have your value added tax, which is plus minus 15 marks. And then you have your tangible assets. It is my hope that I'll be able to touch each and every aspect, even though I may not do all the questions, but as long as I can touch a particular aspect and remind you on what you need to do as you prepare for Monday's paper. These topics are assessed in any examination. Check recent papers. So you will find that in recent papers, we have had these topics coming in Paper 2. On your reconciliations, we will look at the bank reconciliation. There is also the debtors reconciliation. Remember, we look at the debtors control and the debtors list and the debtors age analysis. I've seen at times the examiner can test both, or they can test only one of these. And the creditors reconciliation, we'll look at the creditors control and the creditors list and the creditors ledger and the creditors statement. Only one of these can be tested. So because of time, we will not be able to do all the three recons. In today's class, we'll only focus on two recons. That is your bank recon as well as your debtors recon. I'll also not be able to do the debtors age analysis. But if you follow lessons on this platform, you'll find that there's a day that I've done the debtors age analysis. Please go look for that and use it to prepare for Monday's exam. We're quickly going to jump to activity 1, which is from the ASC June for the year 2023. So if you have the worksheet before you, make sure you have your calculator, you have your pencil or a pen, and then you have somewhere to write as we are about to begin. Very important that when I do calculations here, do the calculations together with me. That will enable you to understand perfectly well. It says, Violet Stores. The information was extracted from the records of the business for April 2023. Violet uses the official bank statement, which is available on the 25th of each month. Dates are very important to complete the monthly reconciliation process. She also uses EFT transaction records number to complete the cash payments journal. So this is what we're required to do now. To update the journals, that is your CIJ, CPJ, calculate the correct bank account balance, and prepare the bank reconciliation statement. Very important. Remember that internal controls on the bank reconciliation must also be prepared. So you have to know your internal controls for cash missing. So that when such a question does come, you're able to answer it. Internal controls are very, very important. So you need to prepare your internal controls as well. So here's the information that we were given. And we were also told, here's the information that we're given. And we are going to enter the information. The first thing that you must do, remember what I said yesterday, when you read your question paper, you read it together with the answer book. So you do the same for your paper too. You read the question paper together with the answer book, so that when you are answering, you know which information to take from the question paper and which information to bring into the answer book. Now, what is of great importance is when you look at your bank reconciliation, you must read it and you must understand what it is. Okay, and then after you have done that, the next thing that you must do is to take information from the previous bank reconciliation and record it where it has to be recorded. Now, you have to understand why information is in the bank reconciliation. We would record information in the bank reconciliation statement because it was in the journals, that is either CRJ or CPJ. So the journals are done by us, so it was in the journals. However, that information was not on the bank statement. It was not on the bank statement by them. Hence, we put it on the bank reconciliation statement. In the event that such information then appears on the bank statement, therefore, it means what we were looking for has now been found. Remember, there's a question that always says, why should a business prepare a monthly bank reconciliation? That is part of the theory that you need to go and work on over this weekend. Okay, so now in this case, you will see that we have information that is on the bank reconciliation statement in March. And we now are given information. The first one reads, the outstanding deposit on 18 March. Very key that you take a pencil so that whenever you deal with a transaction, you tick it off to say, I have dealt with this transaction, so that you don't spend time going in circles. Okay, remember in an accounting exam, time is of great importance. You need to manage your time and move as fast as possible. So the outstanding deposit appeared on the April 2023 bank statement. So if it's an outstanding deposit, that means it was in the CRJ, but it was not on the bank statement. Now they're telling us that it has appeared on the bank statement. It was not on the bank statement, so we had put it in the BRS, as you can see here, on 18 March. Now we are told it has now appeared on the bank statement. Now that it has appeared on the bank statement here, what do? We do nothing. So the moment an amount that we were looking for appears on the bank statement with no mistake, we do nothing of that amount. We simply come and we put a line across it to say, we have found it, so we are okay. The examiner will always bring this kind of transaction. At times they'll say the outstanding deposit has appeared on the April bank statement, but not in the journals. They would say that, but the last part of the statement is not even necessary because it was already in the March journals. So you don't have to put it in the journals. At times the examiner can add that statement. It does not mean that you must put it in the journals. You simply have to do nothing. I'm going to move on to the next one. The deposit on 28 March appeared as 22.2. Okay, so the deposit here was 37.2. Remember, this deposit would have been in the CRJ. It was in the CRJ. Are you still with me? But it did not appear on the bank statement. Hence, we find it in the BRS now. We're being told it has now appeared on the bank statement as 22.2. So you can see here there's a difference between 37.2 and 22.2. There's a difference of 15,000. Now we're being told that an investigation revealed that the cashier has disappeared with the outstanding amount. So the cashier has ran away with the 15,000. It was decided to write off the outstanding amount. So the moment we cannot account for that money, we write it off. In the CRJ, we recorded 37.2. However, only 22.2 is appearing on the bank statement. That means we now need to go and cancel how much? The 15,000. Where do we do that? In the CPJ. The moment the CRJ is more, we reduce it by recording in the opposite journal, which is the CPJ. So we come to the CPJ and the amount is 15,000. So we come here, it is 15,000, like that. That is the second one. Can I move on to the third one? Let's do that. We are told both the EFTs on the April statement, okay, we're on the April statement, both the EFTs were on the April statement, but EFT 768, this one now, 768, appeared with the correct amount. So the correct amount is on the bank statement of 4580. Yet in the journals, that is the CPJ, in the CPJ we recorded 5480. So what that means is in the CPJ we recorded 5480. Yet we're being told the correct amount is now on the statement, which is 4580. The difference is 900. So we have a difference of 900. Who is correct? The bank statement is correct. Therefore, if the bank statement is correct, who has recorded incorrectly? Us in the journals. EFTs, we journal CPJ. So in the CPJ, you have 5480, which is more. The moment an amount is more, you correct it by putting the difference in the opposite journal. So we come to the opposite journal, which is your CRJ. We come to the CRJ and then we record the 900 rands. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So far we have dealt with all the information that is here. One thing that is of great importance is that your balance here must always be taken immediately to the calculation of the correct bank account balance. So let's look at that. So you will see here that I'm going to take that one. Here I'm being told favorable balance. On the bank account, remember this is in the general ledger done by us. So on the debit side, this is going to be our favorable side. In other words, we're going to find CRJ here. On the credit side, this is going to be our unfavorable side. Then we're going to find CPJ here. The first thing we're going to take is the balance. So we're going to come here and our balance, I'm going to come here and say balance brought down. And the balance brought down is 49,720. Take note of this, that whenever you have done this, you are now left with the updated journals and then you complete your bank account. But what is of great importance is to use the method that you are used to in the classroom. If you use the line method, stick to the line method. If you use the T account, then use the T account. What is of great importance is you continue doing what you've been taught by your teacher in the classroom to assist you to get as many marks as possible. All right, so we're going to move on from here and then we come here now. So we have additional information now. All right, at times the examiner can say information that is on the journals that is not the same as the one on the bank statement. But at times they don't say that. They just come and say additional information. That means you must read the information, understand it, and know what to do. Okay, so we're told, number one here, the debit order by Brylet Municipality was for water and electricity. So the debit order by Brylet, which is 2880. We're being told that was for water and electricity with journal CPJ. So I'm going to come here, it's going to be 2,880 for water and electricity. CPJ. So we're done with that one. The next one. Why Marigold, the tenant, deposited the monthly rent? Okay, so we can see here that we have the transaction and it speaks to this one, the 8,400. Why Marigold? So once we have an amount that was deposited directly into the business bank account and now we are seeing it on the statement, we must recall that in the journals, and in this case in the CRJ, and the amount is 8,400. So we come here, we have our 8,400. The next one reads, the deposit from Bentley Microloans did not relate to the business. The bank was informed of this error. Okay, so we have a deposit here, which is that one and that one. Okay, I want you to look at this one. And then in the next slide, I'm going to deal with that one, okay? Because we will correct it on the BRS. So here I don't have my BRS on this slide. In the next slide, I'm going to explain this particular transaction. So just put a star on it, and then we're going to come back to it. Let's go on to the next one. The cash withdrawal of 740 was for fuel for the owner's vehicle. So here we have a withdrawal for the owner's fuel. So we're going to come to the CPJ. Remember, that's your drawings, CPJ, 740. And then the EFT transaction fees were duplicated on the bank statement in error. This is one popular transaction with examiners where they give you a duplication. Remember, one of them is correct and one of them is wrong. So let's say this is the correct one. Once it is correct, that simply means they have recorded transaction fees, EFT transaction fees, which are correct. And we don't have them because we can only see them when we receive the bank statement. That means we must come now to the CPJ. Then we record one of them, and that is 360. The second one is incorrect. Therefore, we have an error done by the bank, and we correct this in the BRS. Okay, and then before I move on, you will see that I have a transaction that I have not yet touched here. All right, I have a transaction that I have not yet ticked, and I want us to look at those ones. The first one is the investment matured, which is 18,300. So as you can see here, that investment matured, it is money that we have received. Money that we have received. So it will now come to my CRJ. So I would have ticked that one now. I'll bring it here, 18,300. The other aspect that is not ticked is the cash handling fees. So you can see these are bank charges as well as EFT transaction fees. These are also bank charges. So someone would have come here and said plus 220. So you would see that someone might have just recorded in total 580 over there. That is a total of the 360 and the 220. One of the EFT transaction fees is correct. Then the next one is an error. So we are going to correct that one. We put a star on it as well. All right. Can I move on to the next one? Let's do that. So in the next one now, remember we have two aspects that we need to correct. Before we correct that one, format is of great importance. You need to stick to the format that you've been taught by your teacher. If you have been taught to start with balance as per bank statement, and then you would end with balance as per bank account, then you need to stick to that. If you start with balances per bank account and end with balances per bank statement, stick to that. If you are doing the two column, stick to what your teacher has taught you. If you use the single column, you also do that. But for this lesson, I'm going to use the balance as per bank statement at the top, and at the bottom, balance as per bank account. And I'm going to use the double column. All right. And then remember, I have two aspects here to correct. The first one, it is the deposit from Bentley Microloans, which was incorrect. So what do? I know that we have received money which we were not supposed to receive. A deposit simply means it was credited. So I'd come here and I would say debit amount, incorrectly credited. So the amount was incorrectly credited. So I'll debit it, 65,000. Debit amount incorrectly credited. That is the first one. And the second one, it is this EFT transaction fees of 360. No, this one was okay. Remember, it is these ones here at the bottom, the EFT transaction fees. So transaction fees are debited. So what do we do now? Credit amount incorrectly debited, and the amount is 360. So you'd find it now on your credit side, the 360. I'm going to move on. Okay. And then you now have more transactions. So remember, we began, when we started, we said we're going to stick to one formula whereby we start our BRS with balance. All right, we're going to start it with balance as per bank statement, and we agreed that we're going to end it off with balance as per bank account. That is what we have agreed for this lesson. And then we are now told cash journals reflected the following entries that did not appear on the bank statement. So they are in the cash journals by us, and they are not on the bank statement by them. Once you have a situation like that, where an amount is in the journals, but the amount is not on the bank statement, you bring that to the BRS. So we come here, we have a deposit. So in this format, we will know that I have to credit my outstanding, I credit my outstanding deposits. I credit my outstanding deposits. That is 22,500. And the next thing that I'm going to do now, I'll come to my EFTs. And I know that I debit my outstanding EFTs. And I must number them. Remember, the first one is 883. And it is 9,520. And the second one is 884. And the amount is 12,530. Now, very, very important that you do so. All right, I'm going to move on now to the last part of our bank reconciliation. So remember, this is now the updated journals, and then we can take the amount. So here we're going to take our total receipts. I'm just going to say total receipts here. That is 143,200. And here I'm going to bring my total payments. That is CPJ. Here is CRJ. Very, very key. And I bring my CPJ, which is 237,000. 237,000. Okay. So once we have done that, we now need to look for the side with the highest amount. Okay. The side with the highest amount. So if we're to look for the side with the highest amount, that would be your 237. So I'm going to come here. It's your 237 here. 237. And then here it's going to be 237. And then here you're going to get your balance carry down. And your balance carry down here, it's simply the difference between 237, the difference between 237,000 minus 143,200 minus your 49,720. That's going to give you 44,080. So you come here, it gives you your 44,080. So you come here, balance brought down 44,080. Now let's see where we're going to take this amount. So when we come here now, we have already recorded all of these ones. Okay, not yet this one, but we've recorded all of these. So remember, our balance was on the credit side. So we bring it to the credit side as well. Balance is per bank account on the credit side. Then we look again for the side with the highest amount. In this case, it will be your debit, which is 87,050. 87,050. Then you end up now with your balance as per bank statement on the credit side. All right. So what is of great importance, dear learners, is to understand how to prepare the bank reconciliation. The examiner can bring it in different ways and in different forms. You just have to prepare adequately. Do several past exam papers that can expose you to different ways in which the examiner can bring the bank reconciliation statement. Okay, so from here, we will now move on to activity 2. You can see I'm moving a bit faster today because I have a lot of aspects that I need to cover with you. In this activity, we're going to look at the debtors reconciliation. Debtors reconciliation. So remember, I have done the bank reconciliation. I'm going to do the debtors reconciliation. I will not do the creditors, but over the weekend, take time to prepare on the creditors reconciliation in your own space. Let's go. So this relates to zigzag traders. And then we are told this is the information, all right, before taking into account errors and information. And this is the errors and information, all right, errors and omissions, errors and omissions, all right. And then here's more errors and omissions that must still be taken into account. And then we start with the first error. We're told an invoice. Now, what is of great importance is that when you do such kind of a question, you need to understand that source documents have to be treated as they are. For example, here you are given an invoice. You have to know how to record your invoice. So let's come to that. So here you are told an invoice, remember an invoice is a plus, for 1,750 issued to Barnes was not recorded in the books of zigzag traders. So you have to ask yourself, who is zigzag traders? Zigzag traders is us. That is one thing that you have to make sure you understand on Monday. When you read the question, there has to be us and them. Okay? Us and them. Who are we? All right? Once you understand that aspect, that makes life easy for you. So we have the debtors control, and here we have the debtors list. So an invoice for 1,750, which we issued to Barnes, was not recorded in our books. The moment an invoice is not in our books, it means it was not posted to the control, and it is also not in the debtors list. Therefore, what do we do with such an invoice? Remember, an invoice is a plus. So I'll come in, then I'll say plus 1,750. We sold goods to Barnes, but that invoice was not recorded anywhere. That means it's not in the control, and it will also not be in Barnes' books, plus 1,750. These are principles that you have to understand how to record such errors and omissions. Let's look at number 2. It says a direct deposit of 2.5, that is a payment, by E. Foley was correctly recorded in the journal, but incorrectly posted to the account of E. Fox, another debtor, in the debtor's ledger. So once it's correct in the journal, that simply means the debtor's control is also correct. Now, when you come here, do not leave it blank. Put a 0. it shows you understand that it will have no effect in the debtor's control. Don't leave it blank. Put a 0. But then when you come here now, you are now saying, this is a deposit of 2.5 by Foley, but we recorded it in eFogs. And you can see eFogs is not part of these debtors. What does that mean? You simply come to eFoley. And what do you say in eFoley? Minus 2,500 in eFoley. Let's go on to the next one then. Number 3. The total of the debtors journal. The total of the debtors journal 62.5 was incorrectly recorded as 65.2. So if you get the difference between this one and that one, your calculator will tell you that is 2,700. Am I correct? Thank you. That is 2,700. So here we're dealing with the total of the debtors control. Let me ask you, if we are dealing with the totals, where do you think we take it? Does it affect the control or the list? It will definitely affect your control. Okay, then I'm going to come to the list and then I'm going to ask you a question. So if it is the total of the debtors journal in the DJ, this is when we sell. The sign here will be a plus. So we sold goods 62.5, but we have overstated it. So once an amount is overstated, you correct it by subtracting. So you come here and say minus 2.7, because you have overstated your amounts from the DJ, and the DJ is a plus. Once you overstate an amount that you added, you correct it by subtracting it. The next question is, does it affect Barnes? No. Does it affect C. Davis? No. Does it affect E. Foley? No. That means it will not come to the debtors control. Let's move on to number 4. It reads, merchandise sold to C. Davis 3.5. So we sold stock to C. Davis 3.5. It was treated as a return. Remember, when it's sold, it's a plus. But it was treated as a return of goods, a minus, and recorded in the DAJ. Once an incorrect entry is made in the journals, it means the total is incorrect. So it affects the control. It means the posting to the individuals is incorrect. It affects the list as well. You still with me? Okay. So we have an amount, which is an amount of what? 3.5. It was treated as a return of goods. It was supposed to be a plus, but we said minus. So what do we do? Let's come here first in the control. In the control, we know that once we make an error of subtracting an amount that was supposed to be added, therefore we have to add it, but twice. So it simply means it's my 3.5. I multiply that by 2. That gives me 7,000. So it means I'm coming here to say plus 7,000. We're still together. And then I'll also come to C. Davis. And in C. Davis, what am I saying now? I'm now saying on C. Davis, plus again, 7,000. Someone would have just said plus 3.5 plus 3.5. It's exactly the same. Once an amount is recorded on the opposite side, you record it on the correct side twice. If you subtract an amount that was supposed to be added, you add it twice. Number 5. 5,200 received from D. Klein, a debtor whose outstanding balance was written off 6 months ago. So this is bad debts recovered, was recorded in the CRJ as if it's receipt from a debtor. This is incorrect, because once a debtor is written off and then pays, it only affects 2 accounts. That is your bank and your bad debts recovered. It must never affect your debtor's control. But in this case, it was recorded in the CRJ as a receipt from a debtor. That means our debtor's control was incorrectly recorded. what did we do? We recorded an amount as if it's a payment from a debtor. Once it's a payment from a debtor, it decreases the debtor's control. Yet this does not affect our debtors. So we need to correct that one. So we come here, then we say plus 5,200. Okay, I'm going to move to number 6. And it says, merchandise returned by A bonds, okay, was recorded in the relevant journal as 250 instead of 700 and posted accordingly. So this means the error was done everywhere. So the difference is simply 700 minus 250. That's going to give us 450. This is a return, which is a minus, was recorded as 250. So we have recorded less of a return. We've recorded less of a return. So once we record less of an amount, we have to go and add again until we get to that amount. In other words, we subtracted only 250 when we were supposed to subtract 700. When we were supposed to subtract 700. So we have to go and subtract again another 450 so that the total becomes 700. You're following me? So I'm going to come here and I'm going to say minus 450 again. And then I come to A bonds and I say on A bonds minus 450 as well. Once you subtract less, go and subtract again more. The same would apply if it was an invoice. If you had added less, still go and add more. That would be the same. Number 7, an EFT for 7850 received from Ifoli as part payment of his account was entered correctly in the relevant journal, but no entries were made in the debtor's ledger. 7850. Recorded correctly in the relevant journal, that is in the debtor's control, we are fine. But no entries were made in the debtor's ledger, so we come to Ifoli. And EFT, it's a payment, that's a minus. So we come to Ifoli minus 7850. What do we do here? We said once we're not recording, what do? We put a 0. We put a 0. We don't leave it blank. We put a 0. Okay. And then that'll be it. Activity number 3. Someone is saying, you're moving too fast. I know. It's because paper 2 has a lot of topics that we need to cover. So far in today's class, we've done bank reconciliation, and we need to prepare for bank reconciliation. We have done debtors reconciliation, and we need to prepare adequately over the weekend for debtors reconciliation. But let's not forget the debtors age analysis, because the examiner can bring these together. Please take time to prepare the creditors reconciliation and remember the 2 different ones which I showed you at the beginning of the lesson. Okay, so can I go to activity 3? Thank you. Let's go to activity 3. Activity 3 now, I'm going to speak to cost accounting. Cost accounting. Okay, so when we come to cost accounting, there are certain things that you need to prepare. You must know how to do your factory overhead cost. You must know how to do your production cost statement. You must also know how to do your abridged statement of comprehensive income. You know that short income statement? You must know how to do that one. You must also know how to do your break-even calculations. Break-even calculations. You must also know how to do break-even analysis. Once it has been calculated, you must know how to analyze and how to interpret the figures that you have calculated in break-even. And you must also be able to do your questions that have to do with problem solving, such as the wastage of material, or when we're paying too high salaries, what can we do? These are questions that the examiner can test. So you need to go over this weekend and prepare adequately on such questions. Remember, problem solving will always be part of our exam papers. Bank reconciliation, there will be problems. You must also bring in problem solving ideas. Creditors reconciliation, there'll be problems. Debtors, there'll be problems, as well as cost accounting. So you cannot shy away from theory. You have to prepare adequately, not in the morning of Monday, but you have to start tonight and prepare adequately so. In this particular question, I'm going to do the factory overhead cost as well as the production cost statement. Let's do that. So, we have to emphasize format. You have to know your format. And remember that there are several ways in which you can complete your production cost statement, especially this bottom figure here. Very, very key that you must expose yourself to all these ways. Okay, so there is a way in which you can do your production cost statement from the top going all the way to the bottom. That is one way. The next one is when you do it from the bottom and then you go up. That is another way. And in that one, you can be given the number of units and the cost. Or you can be given finished goods and you have to open a finished goods stock account. That is another option. Please expose yourself to such type of questions because the examiner can use any of these ones. There is a number of ways in which the examiner can do this. Okay. So let's move on to, because here the information is recorded. Okay. Let's go. So here we're given information about direct labor. Okay. We're given information on direct labor. And in this one, we are required to calculate our direct labor cost. So we're going to calculate our direct labor cost here. Very important that you know what to do. You're calculating your direct labor cost. So we are told here that we have 40 workers and the normal wage is 60 Rand per hour and normal overtime it's 1,920 and the total in overtime hours is total in rands 1,142,000. Okay, so we want to see if we can do this one together. Let's come here. So remember, it will be coming here as your direct labor cost. All right, so I'm going to do my calculations over here. Make sure you have a calculator close to you. I'm now going to say your 40, which is your number of employees, 40, multiplied by the normal wage rate, which is 60 rands. And then you multiply that by the normal time hours that have been worked. All right. Or you can simply say 40 times 60 over there. So you can say 40 times 60. And then you get a 2,400. You get a 2,400. Then that 2,400 you multiply by 1920. And then that is what would then give you, let's see how much that is going to give us. Multiply by 1,920. Like that. That's going to give you 4,608,000. So it gives you 4 million. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to say 4,608,000. Then I add my overtime plus 1,142,000. Okay. And then that is now going to give me 5,750,000. Now, let me pause here for a while. The examiner can bring different ways of testing this area here. They can bring the form of a salaries adjustment as the one you can see in the statement of comprehensive income, where you have your gross, your deductions, and your contributions. Remember what comes in here. It is your gross plus contributions. If the examiner brings that kind of an adjustment, gross together with your contributions, the examiner can also use different ways of testing this particular area. Okay, and remember, there can also be an internal control question that can be tested as to the supervision of employees. The next aspect becomes your direct material cost. Now, in this case, we were not required to open a note or calculation for it. So we'd simply say 12.5 minus the 5,750,000, which gives you 6,750,000. Now, check this one. On this place again, the examiner can play around with this calculation of direct material cost. What if the examiner brings in your FIFO method? So you can have your opening stock, you can have your purchases of raw materials, but you're not given the closing stock of raw materials. Then you have to calculate that using FIFO or weighted average. Let me not write off specific identification. So you then infuse your inventory valuation onto your calculation of direct material cost. That is a possibility. So you cannot shy away from that. Make sure this weekend you expose yourself to such calculations. And then remember, internal controls, where there is wastage of materials, that must also be considered. I've seen another one whereby they give you the meters of fabric that must be used to calculate direct material cost. There is a number of ways the examiner can test this particular area. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. Now, factory overheads. With factory overheads, you have to know reverse calculations and you must read the question properly. You need to understand what you are given and also what you want. Let's read. It says, the bookkeeper calculated the factory overhead cost at 2,638,600. The following costs were omitted and must be taken into account. Insurance is a fixed monthly premium, okay, for the entire financial year. The amount paid, you heard that, the amount paid, which is 235,950, includes the premium for March. Okay, 2/3 of this expense relates to the factory. Okay, so it's very key that you understand how to do that kind of an adjustment. So we come here and then we're going to say insurance. All right, and then we're now going to say of the insurance. First, we have to know how much it is. Here we're given the 235,950. But we know this is for 13 months because our financial year ends in February. However, we also have a premium for March. It means we have paid 1 month in advance. We don't want the 13 months. We want 12 months, yet we are given 13. So you now say multiply by 12 over 13. It is very important that you adjust for the prepayment or the accrual before you can come to this allocation. So if you do that on your calculator, because of time, you guys have to punch in the calculator today. 235,950 multiply by 12 over 13. I think it will give you 217,800. So come here now on my insurance. I'm now saying 217,800. That amount now. Then 2/3 of this relates to the factory. Then I can only bring the 2/3 here after I have adjusted for this prepayment. Very key. Adjust either for the prepayment or for the accrual before you can allocate. Okay, and then on your calculators, how much are you getting? Thank you. You get 145,200. Let's move on to the next one. All right. Here is another common type of adjustment that the examiner can bring. It says water and electricity allocated was 69.2. Okay, and remember, it was allocated to the office. Water and electricity allocated to the office. That means when I come here, it is 69.2. What do I want? I want water and electricity for the factory. Water and electricity for the factory. So you have to now say, what is it that you want? You want 560. What do you have? You have 160. Multiply that by 69,200. And then you close your bracket. You close your bracket. And how much do you get now? 242,200. That is what we then get. Let's go on to the next one. So the examiner can play around with this one. The wording of the examiner is very important. How he uses his words. You must read into the words. Water and electricity allocated to the office. But what we want is the factory. Okay. So let's go on to the next one. Rent of 316,000 was recorded in the factory overhead cost. However, the bookkeeper used the incorrect ratio of 2:5:1 for the factory, the sales, and the office. That means the 2 is here, the 5 is here, and the 1 is there. Okay, rent was recorded in the factory overhead cost. So it means the easiest way, let's get to the original rent amount before it was allocated. So if I say 2 plus 5 plus 1, that gives me what? That gives me 8. So the total rent was 8. That is what I want. And the rent that was given to the factory, how much was given? They gave 2. And how much is that? 316,000. Okay. So how much was the total rent before it was allocated? So I get to come back to the initial rent, which is 1,264,000. Now, when I have that correct rent amount, then I can now say, when I have the correct rent amount, then I can now say the 1,264,000. Then I multiply by what is supposed to be recorded, which is 5 as to 2 as to 1. The factory gets the 5. So what I now want is 5, and what I have is 8. And if I multiply that on the calculator, how much do you get? You get your 790,000. Now, several ways of doing this. Let me do the simplest one. You come here and you say rent. The moment an amount is incorrectly added, the easiest way, take it out. So I'll come and I'll say that 316, which was recorded in the factory overhead, let me pull it out. Let me take it out because it was incorrect. So I'll come and say minus 316. Then I must now add the correct amount. So I'll come and say plus 790. This becomes the correct amount. And if you close your bracket, you must get your final amount over there. Okay. And then let's move on to the next aspect. Very key that you do these adjustments properly. Okay. So we are now told, remember we have already recorded the prime cost, it was given. And then, so the top part, remember we did it already, but we're given now the last part of your production cost statement. We were given the finished goods. So it simply means we come here and we say 33,500 and we multiply that by 475 to give us the final amount. That is the cost of production of finished goods. That will give us 15,912,500. That becomes the last amount. And then once you get that, you can then get your working process. Remember, you're now doing it from the bottom going up because here you are coming from the top and then you meet in the middle. And we now go to activity 4. We're going to take a 2 minute, exactly 2 minutes, and then we're going to continue with our class. So let's take a 2-minute break, and I'll see you shortly.
Excellence. Excellence is a habit. Excellence is a quality you have, a quality I have. It's a quality we have when we honor what is true to us. Yes, we are gifted differently. uNkulunkulu akasinganga ngokufana. Excellence is striving for your best. Whenever you have a particular project, test, homework, uzibuze, ask yourself, is this my best? Can I put in more effort? Excellence is striving to be in the top 1% of the area in which you are gifted. And so I challenge you, in every single thing that you do, in every single area that you're gifted in, whether it's sports, it's academic, ucula, whatever that gift is, strive for excellence.
Welcome back. We are now going to do the next activity, and let's continue. So this is now on budgets. Budgets. Remember, on your budgets, you must be able to do your debtors collection schedule. Very key. Your creditors payment schedule. You must be able to do your calculation of missing amounts in the cash budget. There is tricky adjustments such as your loan adjustments, the business acquiring new vehicles. Expose yourself to all these kinds of adjustment. When you do several past papers, you would find that you get more confident with your budgets. In this one, we will not do the debtors collection, we will not do the creditors because of time. However, we're going to do certain calculations. Again, we're going to do them at a very fast pace because I still have other things that I want to show you. Okay, so let's go. We're calculating A up to D. So here is the information, and we're going to start over here. We're told rent income is expected to increase by 9% per annum in July. So this one is a bit easy because we are given the 15,500 and we know that rent income is going to increase by 109, we know that the 15.5 is 100%. So if I'm to calculate, I need 109 over 100. This one is much easy. So I'll get my 16,895. You must be able to calculate from the 16,895 coming back to the 15.5. The reversal of it is also of great importance. Make sure you do these reverse calculations. When you're given the amount already after increase, are you able to come back to the amount before increase? It simply means you are going to say your 16,895 multiply by 100 over 109, and it will take you back to your 15.5. We good? All right, let's go on to B. When you're calculating B, we're told the business has negotiated a loan which will be received on the 1st of June. Interest at 13.5% per annum is payable at the end of each month commencing 30 June 2021. Okay, so we know that in this business there is interest on loan. Okay, so the interest on loan on this slide, it is not there, but the interest on loan on your worksheet, you have interest on loan of 3,150. That is the interest on loan. And that 3,150 on your worksheet, you would find it there. Then you multiply that by 12 months because you want to get the loan amount, okay, which is your B over here. So you say the interest on loan, which is 3,150, again, it is on your worksheet. You multiply that by 12 and you simply divide by 13.5 divided by 100, which is 0.135. And when you punch that on your calculator, it will give you the loan, which is your 280,000. That becomes your B. Okay, let's quickly go on to the next one. All right. So with your director's fees adjustment, there is several of them. And I think in today's paper, you saw there was another director's fees adjustment as well. So you need to expose yourself to several director's fees adjustment. Because of time, I'm going to skip this one and then I'm going to move on to the next one. All right. So the next one is another director's fees adjustment as well. What I just wanted to emphasize is that once you get your director's fees adjustment, you have to understand and you must be able to calculate your director's fees adjustment. But let me not bring more pressure. You've already done another director's fees adjustment today. So maybe you should focus on acquiring new vehicles, calculations that have to do with loan, interest on loan, or even increase in salaries for employees. Those are the other adjustments that you need to look into. So before I even move on to the next activity, you must be able to do your variance analysis. Okay, that is, be able to compare your budgeted with your actual. That is very important. You being able to analyze your budget. You need to be able to do that, analyzing your budget. And we're going to do an activity 5 from NSC June 2021. Okay, and here it reads, Kyla extracted the following actual and budgeted figures. So you have your budgeted and your actual. And then comment and quote figures on the effectiveness of advertising. Was advertising effective? You have to know that there has to be relationships between certain expenses in your budget. For example, advertising has to be linked to your sales. So when you comment on your advertising, you need to look at the relationship with sales. At times you can be given commission on sales. Those are kind of questions that you need to expose yourself to. Is there a relationship between the income and the expense? I've seen several types of exam papers where they bring an expense or an income, and then you have to draw a relationship between the two. So expose yourself to different kinds of papers so that you can see if we are doing a catering business, our sales must be linked to the cost of us preparing the food. If it's a restaurant business, if it's a hotel, maybe it's a tourist attraction, maybe it's an Uber business, our petrol must be directly related to the services that were given to our clients. So you must be able to think critically and be able to draw relationships between your cost. Okay, so in this one, you can see that although it is the same amount on your advertising, you can see here, it is the same amount, but the actual sales is less than the budgeted by 176.4. You can see that the budgeted was 882, but the actual is 705. So it is less. And to get the 20%, you simply get the difference. You say 882,000 minus 705,000, and you divide it by the old amount, the budgeted, which is 882,000. You multiply by 100 over 1, and it will give you your 20%. Okay, so that is another way. Remember, when you calculate percentages, it will give you a clear picture. On Monday, learn to calculate percentages. Of course, you can't learn it on Monday, but apply it on Monday. So you must learn it tonight and the rest of the weekend. Make sure you practice on how to calculate these percentages. Advertising was therefore not effective. The commenting, we need to hear your comment. Where are you standing? We need to hear that one. Okay. And then here's another one. Delivery expenses. As I said, our deliveries, you can see here, it seems as though they decreased. But when you calculate percentages, they'll give you a clear picture. So you see, your delivery is lower than the budgeted by 6,130. That is by 10.7%. You see, it has declined. However, if you look at the decline in sales, the decline in sales was 20%. Yet in delivery, it is only 10%. It shows that our deliveries are not directly proportional to our sales. They have to be directly proportional. They have to be directly related. So you can see here that there is no control of the delivery expenses because they only decreased by 10%. Yet our sales had a big decrease of 20%. So we can say delivery expenses are therefore not well controlled. When you look at the rand value, it will not give you a clear picture. Learn to calculate these percentages. Very, very important. Okay. And then these are questions now that the examiner can ask. The businesses decided to purchase a delivery vehicle, so you must go into the exam open-minded. Maybe they won't buy a delivery vehicle. Maybe they will purchase land and buildings. How does that benefit the business? Remember, an asset is always a good thing. Maybe they're saying they want to change from one system to the other. You must go there with a problem-solving approach. When you look at your budgets, you must be able to analyze and critically do so. That is of great importance. Okay, so these are some of the reasons why it is good or how it will benefit the business if they would buy their own vehicle. The business will own an asset and deliveries can be made easier. It becomes convenient for the business. So these are questions that can change, they can shift, they look at your ability to solve problems. So as you prepare over the weekend, prepare on questions that test you on your problem solving techniques. I'm going to move on to the next activity, which is also analyzing, that is the budgeted and the actual. All right. So again, you have your budgeted and your actual. Then they say, the salespeople agree to a change. Explain the change. So again, you must be able to look. If you look here, they were getting a salary, and you can see here, there is nothing there. And then we're told that there is a change. Where is the change? They are now paying them a fixed salary and commission as well. So those are some of the things. When you read your information on Monday, go there with a critical mind. Don't just look at figures as they appear, but be able to see, okay, this was was 0. Now it is this one. That is a change. What change? Are you able to identify? Very, very critical. Okay, and then these are some of the questions that relate to the changes that would have happened. What is your opinion? Maybe they changed their way of advertising. Maybe they changed the delivery vehicle system that they were using. Be able to critically analyze. You require that for Monday. Problem solving. Okay, so I'm going to now come to the next activity. Now, in the next activity, I'm talking inventory valuation. Inventory valuation. Remember, I said there is a possibility that the examiner can merge some of these topics. For example, your fixed assets can be merged with another question, and your cost accounting can be merged even with inventory valuation. Anything can be possible. Now, let's look at our inventory valuation. When we look at inventory valuation, we're looking at the three methods: your FIFO, your weighted average, and your specific identification. All right, so you must be able to calculate the value of closing stock using your FIFO. To quickly do that, let's see. If you're calculating the value of closing stock, it is very important that you know exactly what you're doing. Here we want to calculate the value for the 235 units. So you come here and you say, my units at the bottom are 235. Then you do the bottom up. Remember, from the recent purchases going up. Now, additional information is of great importance. So, what is key, therefore, is to be able to read this and understand. For example, 30 damaged tabs were returned to the supplier. So, I'll come to the 180, subtract 30. Therefore, I'm left with 150. That is what I'm left with. So when I come here, I'll say 150. Then I multiply that. I know that I'm going to pay carriage of 8 rand per tab. I always want to encourage you that once you read that, come here and say plus 8, plus 8, plus 8, so that you don't forget to add the carriage. It becomes easy this way. Multiply by 483. You have added this one here. And then you punch that in your calculator. That should give you 72,450. Let's come to the next one now. So it will be 235 minus 150. And how much are you left with? 85. Then you look at the next purchase, which is in November. That's where you get your 85. Then you say, how much is the cost per unit? 460 plus 8, 468. And then you get your 39,750. Then you add the total to give you 112,230. You may also be required to calculate missing units, gross profit, and several other calculations. You need to expose yourself to such kinds of questions as the calculation of gross profit. Now, I want us to go to the next method. Remember, time is of essence. So I want us to go to the next method, and then I'm going to see if we can do other calculations as well. Now, in this one, they say calculate the value of closing stock. Which method are they using? Weighted average. Now, with the weighted average, it is very important to know the formula. The formula. So I'm going to draw a line here. And then I'm going to say rands over units. Rands over units. Opening stock in rands, 71,040. Opening stock in units, 480. Plus, then I say plus here, plus my purchases. How much is my purchases? Here, 362,500. 362,500. And here it's going to be 2,000. Others will give you goods available for sale. All right. And if it's in cost accounting, they can give you goods available for production. So it all depends with where the examiner wants to test you. So that's 362,500. Opening stock plus purchases. Let's go to the next one. Then we say minus returns. Minus 30 units returned. Here it's 30, and the returns are from January, and the cost price per unit is 205. So it's 30 by 205, but already we're given the total, which is 6,150. Then we now say plus carriage, 20,960. 20,960. That will give you the average price per unit. It will give you average price per unit. So if you solve the top part, I think the top part is going to give you 448,350, and the bottom part it will give you 2,450. That will give you average price per unit. I've seen questions where you are required to calculate the average price per unit. Here to be 183. Then you take now your 183 and you multiply that by your closing stock units, which is your 360, and that would then give you 65,880, and the question would end there. Other questions would then require you to calculate, for example here, the cost of sales. When you're doing cost of sales and you are in the weighted average method, it becomes easy because you've already said opening stock plus purchases minus the returns plus carriage. So you're simply taking your 448,350. Then you simply subtract your closing stock, 65,880. That is what gives you cost of sales. As simple as that. Once you have your cost of sales, then you can get your gross profit. Okay, we good? Now, I want to show you another calculation before I say goodbye. How to calculate number of units missing. If you want to calculate the number of units missing, you can quickly open up a stock account. Stock account, and this is in units. So you say opening stock. How much is your opening stock? 480. Then you say plus purchases. How many units were purchased? 2,000. And then you can say minus returns. How many units were returned? 30. And then minus sales. How many units were sold? 2,050. And then closing stock. How many units was closing stock? 360. Then you close off your ledger account. Then your missing will come here. This is where you end up with your missing units. And then you must have internal control measures when units are missing. What can we do to prevent that from happening? Internal control for inventory is very, very important. Problem solving questions, you need to prepare on those as you prepare for Monday. How long in days it will take to sell the closing stock? That is another financial indicator which you can find in paper 2. Remember, you also have financial indicators that you can be tested on in paper 2. All right, so it is very key that you know these financial indicators. How long in days it will take to sell the closing stock? At times they can say calculate the average stock holding period. It is all indicators that you can also calculate. Now, if we want to know how long it will take to sell the closing stock, we know we sold 2,050 units in 365 days. So we want to know how long it will take to sell 360 units. That is what we want. When we sold 2,050 in 365 days, then it will give you the number of days it will take to sell the closing stock. Or the examiner can ask the very same thing. The examiner can say, calculate the stock holding period. Then in brackets, the examiner says, use closing stock. Very same thing. The very same thing. Remember to do your specific identification. I don't have time now. I'm about to say goodbye. But remember, guys, you need to prepare your fixed assets. Your fixed assets, it's of great importance. Your fixed assets, I was going to touch on them. Remember to prepare your fixed assets. Remember to calculate your depreciation. You must be able to calculate your depreciation. Remember, the son sold old, new. Remember, when an asset is disposed, you need to be able to calculate the carrying value. That is all necessary. Know how to calculate depreciation. Know how to get the depreciation when the asset has reached the end of its useful life. The 1 rand residual value principle. Know how to apply that one. I cannot leave out VAT. Please be able to calculate VAT. It is just because of time. Here is a depreciation calculation that we were going to do. But here is a VAT question that I would encourage you to do, where you have VAT. But then you are supposed to calculate VAT and you reflect the effect on the amount owing to SARS. Does it increase or decrease the VAT owing to SARS? These are calculations that you must do. Dear learners, we are pressed for time and I have to say goodbye. But I want you to promise me that you're going to be able to do calculations and prepare your theory, internal controls of great importance. I wish you all the best for Monday. Until next time, it is goodbye.